Today we are looking at the Ninja blender system. This is really just kind of a basic blender that we got at Sam's Club. We'd been using a blender that my husband brought into our relationship about 15 years ago, and I don't even know how long he'd had it before then. But it's starting to really wear out. It's just not blending anymore. It was time for a new blender. So while we were at Sam's Club this past week, we got this. My parents have a Ninja, so I've used theirs and really liked it. And I have another Ninja set that is kind of a weird mixture of different blades systems, and it has a motor on top that you put on top and run it. So I liked it enough. I've been very happy with it over the years, so I decided to just get a Ninja blender. I make a lot of protein smoothies with my berries, especially in the summer and the spring as it's warmer. And so I needed something that can really work on those frozen berries, that doesn't need a ton of extra water just to mix everything. Now, I really only wanted the blender part, but happily this also came with a couple of cups. So it's kind of like the bullets, the NutriBullets or whatever. So you can make your own 16-ounce smoothies. So these are 16-ounce cups, and it came with 2 of them with lids like this with the mouth in them. So this way, you know, I have a small one that I often will make myself small smoothies with. But whenever I want to make myself a double, just to basically be my lunch and my snack, I need the larger blender. One thing that I noticed right off, comparing this to my other one that's just the small personal blender, I think is what they call them, is that this container is much heavier, much sturdier. I think that one is a rival. I don't know. It was like a $10 blender. I don't even remember when I got it. But this one, obviously the Ninja, if you are familiar with Ninja, you know that the blades are incredibly sharp. So these are no exception. And so we have the 2 up and down, 2 on either side, up and down. And then you have these tiny little blades in the middle, which is interesting because I've not seen that before. So it'll be interesting to give those a shot. This is all wet straight from, we just got it and have washed it. So we're gonna test it out. And I'm gonna go ahead and make both a large smoothie and a small smoothie, just to see how it goes. I've put a cup of fruit in here, plus a scoop of my protein powder, and then just a tiny little bit of water. I'm probably gonna have to add more, honestly, because it looks really thick in there. But one thing that the recipe book and the instructions for the Ninja say is that you can, you know, they show ice, how it crushes ice very quickly. So I figured I'd give it a shot with the frozen fruit and see if it does well or if I need to add some more water. This seems to be a much larger cup. I haven't actually compared it. I thought the other one was 16 ounces as well, but this seems to be a larger cup than the one for my other personal blender, because I really could make only a 1 protein scoop and 1 cup fruit smoothie. But here you can see this is the max fill line. And so I think I could actually probably make my double in this alone, which would be really exciting, but I'll have to see. So anyway, let's go ahead and put this on. We've put the ingredients in and put the lid on here, the blending lid. We're gonna put it in here. And it's got little spots right here for these tabs to slide down in to hold it in place. You turn it, and you kind of heard it lock into place there. You turn it clockwise, and clearly I'm gonna have to put more liquid in there because my fruit has not fallen. So it does say if you're doing ice or frozen things to pulse it just a few times before you blend it. So we will do that. So you do have to push the power button or it will not come on. And we have the single serve button, but I'm gonna pulse it just a little bit. Okay, apparently will not pulse if you are doing just the single serve. So, thing to be noted. And yes, I definitely need more liquid in there, so let's do that. Okay, I've added more liquid to my single serve, and let's run it again. All right, so you can see it didn't quite, I'm not sure if you can see in the light here. So I've still got some protein powder that's not blended well enough in there. But basically that just means I need a little bit more water. A little more water in there, or just to run it longer actually, because that is a nice consistency for a smoothie. Let's see if I can show that better. Okay, so here we can see a bit better that that's a nice consistency for a smoothie. Before we take a look at the Big Kahuna, I did want to point out that 1 cup of fruit the 1 scoop of protein and then just enough water to blend everything, turns out it does go to the max fill line. So I cannot make myself a double, but it does, even with when you fill up to the max fill line, unlike my personal blender, you do have enough room in there for it to blend without extra difficulty. Now before we start blending anything in it, let's look at the big blender picture. So this has a release button. You need to be aware of this. When you get in there, this is to protect you from this very sharp blade falling out or anything like that. But you have to push the release button and then the handle pops up, and then that will allow you to remove the lid. And again, Ninjas have very, very, very sharp blades. So you always want to pick up from the top. This just sits on that. You can see there, it just sits on this column there. But you always lift from the top because those are incredibly sharp blades and they stay sharp. My other Ninja system, again, I've had those things for, I want to say 6 or 7 years. I got them right after my daughter was born or right around the time she was born so that I could mix her baby food. And I use it for other things, and they still will cut you. My mother recently tried to empty our dishwasher and did not realize that one of these was in there and sliced herself pretty good. So be very, very, very careful. So again, when you want to put the lid on, you make sure that you line the arrows up. You've got an arrow right there, and it lines up with an arrow right here. And see, I'm being very careful to not tip this over and cut myself. So you line those up. Rest the lid on there, then you put the handle down and you hear that click, and so then you know it is locked in place. So let's go ahead and put some goodies in here. Let's point out here that it is a 72-ounce pitcher, so 9 cups, and the max liquid line is at 64 ounces. All right, so 72 ounces. It will hold, but the most liquid you can put in here, 64 ounces. Again, you have to have enough room in there for things to move around to blend effectively. And I am testing things out, obviously, because I haven't gotten to play around with it yet before the video, so you get to benefit from, from this and from seeing me do this. So, one thing you'll notice, when the base is plugged in and the power is on, remember we had to turn the power button on. So when the power is on, but there's nothing in place, this power button blinks at you, and it will not run, see, if there's nothing on it. That's a safety feature. Let's work on making our smoothie. So I have put my 2 cups roughly of frozen berries in there, and I'm just gonna try to mess around with that. I haven't put any liquid or any protein powder in it, and just kind of see how this works. So again, I'm putting my lid on for safety first, locking it. And just like with the handheld, the single serve, when you put this on, you actually have to offset it just a little bit like this. So at 90 degrees off of the corners, and then lock it into place. So you turn it clockwise to lock it in place. And then now that power button is solid again. So again, frozen. So let's hit pulse a few times. Let's see what happens. Woo! That is pretty exciting. So the booklet says that you can use this to process foods and not just blend them. And to be honest, like they say you can make salsa, and I was skeptical, but this is pretty exciting because I am such a nerd. I am such a food nerd. So what was that, 5 times? Let's take a look at that. That is actually pretty awesome. So you can kind of see there are chunks there, right? And I'm not going to dig in there and pull them out because that blade is in place. And I don't want to pull that out because you don't put food in and then put the blade in, obviously, because of how tightly it has to rest on there. But look at that. That is a beautiful chop. Actually, I could see how you could actually make salsa with this. That is just beautiful. These were frozen strawberries, frozen mango, and tiny wild blueberries. So, oh my goodness, I'm excited. Okay, now let's get some protein powder and water in there. Before I put more in there, I wanted to see if I could get a good shot of this. from the top. It looks much nicer in person. You can actually see pretty well, and I don't know how much detail I can get, but see, most of the little blueberries, because they are tiny, they're the tiny wild blueberries, they are still intact, but you can see those little tiny chunks of mango and strawberry. Look how beautifully they are cut into little pieces. So that is just awesome. What I've got here is the frozen fruit that I had already, and then I added 2 scoops of my protein powder, which if I were mixing it just with liquid, I would put 16 ounces of liquid in, but I find that if I do that plus the frozen fruit, it gets too thin, so I put in just 8 ounces of liquid. So let's see what happens. Let's see, it may not be enough, but let's see what happens. So we've already pulsed, so let's just start at speed 1. So I turned it off again just by pressing that speed 1 again. And you can see it did very well here, but we still have those chunks up on the side that I can't do much about. So let's try speed 2 and see what happens. Okay, so it went a little higher up the side. So now I'm going to play around and I'm going to hit pulse a couple of times, see if I can make a nice big mess. Apparently not with the liquid in there. So speed 3, let's see what happens. I may have to get in there and wipe everything, scrape everything down with a silicone spatula. Okay, yeah, so that's not doing much, but you can see, I mean, just how quickly that liquefied everything. That's beautiful. Let me go get a spatula and scrape those sides down and see what happens. I've scraped down the sides, so just gotten those fruit chunks off the edge. There's really not much left to blend, so I'm just gonna hit 1 again and see what happens. And there we go. So I'm going to turn off the power here and then again turn counterclockwise to unlock it and then lift it off. And remember, press that button and then lift. Let's take a look at what's inside. So remember, the only blending that we have done is the blending that I've shown on camera. So I'm going to remove this so we can get a better look at the consistency. It's because, remember, I put in only 8 ounces of water with those 2 scoops of protein powder and 2 cups of frozen fruit. So it's pretty thick. It's kind of like an ice cream consistency almost, but looks like it's going to be a nice consistency for a smoothie. Again, I'm being very careful with that blade. It's kind of thick, but at room temperature, that should actually be great. It's almost like a milkshake consistency, so that's perfect for drinking.